Hey, how's it going? I It's been a while since I made YouTube videos, and I really liked making YouTube videos for a while I was on unemployment. But now I'm not on unemployment anymore. But I wanted to like kind of get the ball rolling since I haven't made YouTube videos for a while, and I figured I'd I'd tell a story. Um, the story I wanted to tell was well, when I was like 20 years old, I moved to Hawaii on the Big Island, and and it took me like with a one-way ticket, and it took me like a year to save up enough money to get back to the rest of America, and, and period, I guess. So anyway, well, here's a little story that happened there. Well, um, I was staying at my friend Tanner's who had lived there for a little while I was living in Hawaii, and and one night he was in and that's who I originally went to live there with and everything, and his and one night I was like, hey Tanner, he lived like maybe like a mile or two from town or something like that, and I was like, hey Tanner, can I borrow your bike so I can go meet girls and stuff? And Tanner goes, he goes, okay, and because I wanted to go into the big part of the Kona, where like the most people are and stuff, and so I took his bicycle, and I ride to into the town of Kona on his bike, and I was like, I wonder where I'm gonna meet girls. Like, am I gonna go into a place and meet girls? Like, where is there girls at that I could talk to? Well, anyway, I happened to go to a Christian college, and as I went to this like Christian college or whatever, I rode my bike around, and I was kind of just checking things out too, the town a little bit, which is only like one street basically, like close to the ocean. That's kind of the town. Like the rest of it's kind of made weird where you have to go in like these little like side streets and stuff. It's not easy to get into like residential neighborhoods in Kona, and so I'm riding my bike, and all of a sudden I'm riding down this hill that got really steep, and I completely flipped over the handlebars and landed right on my back, and the bike landed in front of me, and I was like, oh man, now I got a story to talk about. I can tell girls the story, I have a reason to meet people, and so I was pretty lucky with this, wrecking on my bike. So I go to ride my bike down by close to the ocean, and I see some people, and they're sitting on a bench, and there's a girl and like these two guys, and they had an accent from another country. So I sat down next to I walked up to him, and I said, hey, you guys, I just wrecked on my bike. I flipped over the handlebars, and see, look, I got like scratched right here. What are you guys up to tonight? And I tried to explain that I was gonna go meet girls, and that's why I had wrecked on the bike. And the guy goes, he's like, come sit down right here, and that's like a bad accent, I don't know. He's like, come sit down or something like that, and I'm like, oh, I was like, and I was like, well, where are you guys from? What are you guys up to tonight? And the girl's like, don't do it to him. And he's like, come sit down. And I was standing next to this pole, where they have the plastic things that slide up with those, like the lines, the electrical pole. I'm kind of like messing around with that, and I go to sit down, and there's two guys, and he's like, come sit down right here, sit down right here. And I sit down right next to him, and I put my hand in bird shit, like right immediately, just bird crap all over my hand. So, and that's why the girl said not to let him sit down. So I wipe my hand off on a sprinkler, and she explains how I can wipe my hand off on a sprinkler that's there. And I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, it's still kind of cool hanging out with you guys, at least I have somebody to talk to, because I don't know anybody here. And then, so that was kind of the end of that. But I got a job at a restaurant, and I was working there every day, and I'd give flyers out to people, like thousands of tourists that would walk by every day. I'd give them a flyer, a coupon, and I'd occasionally see him. And like one time I saw him at the beach, and he wouldn't say anything to me, this guy and the girl and this other guy. And then I saw him walk by the restaurant a few times. And in the 4th of July, one time I went up to him, and there was other people with him, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him at all. So I went to so one day they came by where I was working at, and there was all these people that would sell weed and stuff to tourists. that would sit next to me while I gave out these coupons. And like they'd have, one of them had his shirt off all the time, and one of them had like a baseball bat, and they'd be like, hey, you want to buy some weed? And the tourist would always be like, yeah. And then they'd go buy them, sell them really fake weed that wasn't real, and the tourist would come back and be like, why did you give this to me? This, and I'm like, that's not my friend. I don't really know him. They just kind of like hang out next to me, and I give out flyers for a restaurant, and they give out weed. And there's this guy named Chaco that would sit there, and he was from Polynesia originally, and he was crazy. And so these guys walked up, the people that I had seen, and I put my hand in the bird crap, and they said, hey, we wanna can we ask you something? And I was like, sure. And they're like, could we buy a joint? And I was like, well, I can't really do it, but Chaco might be able to. And and so like just the day before, Chaco was throwing rocks at cop cars. In cop cars, they aren't cop cars, they're just normal cars, but they put a little bubble on the top. Okay, so anyway, what happened was back to the store, so I go, okay, I'll ask Chaco. So I asked Chaco, I was like, hey, could you give them a joint or whatever for like some money? And he was like, sure. And I was like, but could you make sure it's real? Because it's not, because they're asking me or specifically or whatever. So anyway, he gives them a joint, and they go, you can come smoke this with us afterward. And I was like, okay. And I wasn't really that interested, but I was like, I'll go, hang out with you and everything. So I go to another place on the beach later after I was done working, and they waited for me, which was really cool. And he goes, I got something to tell you. And the girl's like, no, don't do it. Don't tell him. And he's like, one time I kissed Pamela Anderson. I got a kiss from Pamela Anderson. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Like, how would you get a chance to do that? And he was like, well, you know how I can't hang out with you a lot of the time? And I was like, yeah, like every time I come up to you, you always walk away. And he said, well, because I have bodyguards with me. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. Why, how come you have bodyguards? And he said he was on the island to be a teacher. I mean, to get taught and stuff on the island. And it was a good place for him to go where no one would recognize him. And so so he talked a little bit more. He said he was the king of Denmark. Just to get straight to the like part or whatever, but so I think that's pretty cool. Like I hope he is, but I was just looking it up on the internet, and it said there isn't a king now. But I asked him, what do you want to do for the world someday, like as the king or whatever? And I think he said, oh man, I don't remember it because I just smoked a joint. No, I'm just kidding, but I don't remember. He said he would want to get people's opinions like kind of heard or something. Like that was kind of interesting. But I have a friend, Tim, that he met. He told me a similar story where he had met a king, somebody from Africa that was gonna be like a king or whatever, and he demanded that weed wherever Tim was at the time. And I think that's really funny that you meet like that if we did really meet these kings or whatever, that they were both like they wanted weed. I don't. Might as well legalize it. I don't know. Montana kind of partially did for a while, and now I don't know what's happening. But it's pretty. Yeah. Okay. After this, I'm gonna show you how I can get my cat to climb up on my shoulder. So if you stayed tuned for all this, which is kind of boring, I know, but I'll give it a shot and see if it works. I'm gonna have to put on my special clothes for this one. Just kidding. All right. Here goes. Bye. Denmark, Denmark, Denmark.